Hello fellow history nuts. Welcome to another episode of History in a Flash. Today we are going to talk about mummies. I'm assuming everyone knows what a mummy is, but just so we're clear, if you're imagining the person that you call when you're sick to bring you some hot chocolate and make you feel better, we're not on the same page. On the other hand, if you're imagining a person that looks like they are wrapped in toilet paper, then yes, we're on the same page. Then again, we could be on the same page too with the hot chocolate person, and you could just have some really weird thing going on. That's not my business anyway, let's move on. Of course, probably the most famous mummy is that of King Tutankhamun, or, well, King Tut, which was discovered by archaeologist Howard Carter in 1922. But that's only famous because that mummy came with a dreaded curse, the curse that killed everybody. I'm just kidding, there's no such thing as curses. Right? Yes, right. Anyway, moving on, before we get to Egyptian mummies, which is what we're all dying to hear about, obviously, there are actually other types of mummies. Who would have thought it? I know. Crazy. Mummification is a type of burial that has been around for a very long time. More years than the sum of money in my bank account. But not Donald Trump's. Or some of yours, probably, come to think of it. Okay, so it's not that old. I just don't have a lot of money, okay? Moving right along, shall we? In different cultures, it was practiced for different reasons, in many different ways. In some civilizations, they believed that they mummified all of their citizens, but that in others, it was reserved for only the elite. So those people who could go and have you maimed for looking at them like this. Not all mummies were even mummified on purpose, which sounds kind of creepy, but it's true. They found 100 above ground crypts in Guanajuato in Mexico, which they named the 100 accidental mummies of Guanajuato. They think the mummification of these bodies probably had something to do with the minerals in the soils or the environmental factors, but either way, accidental. On the other hand, if we go into a different culture, now I mean no disrespect to the Buddhist culture whatsoever, but you have to hear this. Buddhist monks used to mummify themselves while they were still alive. They would only eat foods that promoted decay for several years. Once most of their body fat had disappeared, they would then drink this poisonous sap for the next few years to make their bodily fluids disappear. This also helped decrease the risk of infestations for when they did go to bury themselves, so they didn't have to run the risk of insects and things, making themselves at home. And when the time was right, they would have themselves buried. Death came quickly after that, but the self-mummification rarely worked. So it's a pretty awful way to die, actually. I guess it must have been a pretty religious thing. Now, back to Egyptian mummies. Most Egyptians were mummified. After they died, it was a way for them to get between this life and the afterlife. But the way you were buried would vary depending on class and status and all those sorts of things. Like, for instance, if you were pharaoh, you were considered to be a god walking among men. So when they mummified you, they would put you in an amazing casket and you would be buried in a pyramid. But if you were just a lowly, peasant, you would be lucky if you were buried in a plywood box somewhere in some unmarked grave. Something that was constant though was how mummies were made, and I shall now tell you how. Don't try this at home, girls and boys, without asking your parents' permission. Or even with asking your parents' permission, just don't. Just don't try, just don't do it, For one, you need a dead body. First, you gotta pull out that brain through the nose and chuck it in the bin. Totally useless. Then you gotta pull out all of those organs and chuck them in jars to be preserved. All of them except the heart, that is. That needs to stay in the chest. Very important for the afterlife. No, if you touch that hard. Don't think I won't. Next, we cake the body in a lovely layer of the special salt that'll dry it all out. And then we leave it until it's completely soaked all the moisture out of the body. Like a Slurpee. And if that didn't gross you out, there's something wrong with you. Now we pop in some false eyes into the holes where the eyes used to be. Then we start wrapping up the body in lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of linen. Every now and then we go, take a break, and stop with the wrapping and coat the body in this warm resin before we keep going with the wrapping. Until we finally do the last layer and the mummy is done. Ready for the afterlife. Or ready for people to dig up in years to come, ground into powder, plaster the walls of their houses, use as medicine. Sounds disgusting, but it's true. The Victorian people really did use powdered mummy for everything. It was kind of like an all-in-one kit. Oh, what can we do with a powdered mummy today? Maybe I'll paint my nails. And the practice of using powdered mummy as medication dates back to the 16th century and was still something that was done well into the 20th century. Ugh. Well, that's all I have for you today. I think I have spoken enough about mummies. I think I'm starting to feel some sort of weird curse coming on. And I don't even believe in curses, but I hope that you have enjoyed this, and as always, I have done my best, but there might be some inaccuracies, so forgive me if there are. And that is Happy History Night, out and off like a dirty shirt. That reminds me, did you know that the Victorians had mummy unwrapping parties? I mean, and they think we are sick today.